Welcome back. Okay, today in this explainer, we're looking at the ultimate invisible character in literally every film you've ever watched. We're talking about the camera itself. Specifically, we're going to explore how the camera dictates our emotions, and it often does this without us even realizing it's happening. You see, as an audience, we get so caught up in the dialogue and the acting that we completely forget how much of the story is actually being told just by where the lens is placed. So I want you to try a little thought experiment with me for a second. Think about how you might make an actor look incredibly confident, okay? Got it? Now, how would you make that exact same actor look deeply vulnerable? Or what about completely mysterious and unsettling? But here's the catch, and this is a big one. You aren't allowed to change a single line of dialogue, and the actor's performance has to remain exactly the same. No way, right? Well, actually, you can film the exact same person doing the exact same thing in three entirely different ways to get three wildly different reactions from your audience. The secret is actually incredibly simple. Change the camera, and you change the story. In filmmaking, the camera doesn't just sit there recording reality like some objective observer. It presents a very distinct point of view. Where you physically place that camera directly shapes what the audience feels. It's honestly one of the most powerful storytelling mechanisms we have. And today, we're going to break down exactly how it works. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, height versus angle. Let's get our technical foundation set. Listen, before we start manipulating emotions, we really have to clear up a super common misconception you'll see on film sets. Camera height and camera angle are totally different tools. Height is strictly about physical elevation. Literally moving the rig up or down relative to the ground. Angle, on the other hand, is the direction the lens is actually pointing, so tilting it up or down. Height plus angle equals meaning, and changing either one of those dramatically alters the whole psychological experience of a scene. Moving right along to part 2, the storytelling toolkit, let's look at the 7 cinematic angles filmmakers use to guide audience perception. We're going to start right at the baseline, the eye-level shot. This is exactly what it sounds like. The camera is placed right at the subject's eye level. Because this mimics how you and I interact with people in the real world, it creates a very natural, balanced perspective. It just feels neutral. That makes it absolutely perfect for your everyday scenes, standard conversations, and documentary interviews. It allows the audience to relate to the subject as an equal, almost like you're just grabbing coffee with a friend. But what happens when we break that neutrality? Enter the high-angle shot. Here, the camera is placed above the subject and it looks down on them. By forcing the audience to look down, you're physically and psychologically stripping that character of their power. It immediately positions us, the audience, in a state of emotional distance or even dominance over the person on screen. And this brilliantly illustrates how simply raising the camera and tilting down instantly makes a character smaller, weaker, or highly vulnerable. Just picture a child standing alone, viewed from way up above. Their internal anxiety is instantly revealed to the audience without a single word being spoken. It's really powerful stuff. Now, flip that around. If looking down strips power, looking up completely grants it. Enter the low-angle shot. Here, we drop the camera way down and look up at the subject. By forcing the audience to gaze upward, you elevate the character's status. This is exactly why you constantly see low angles used for world leaders, professional athletes, superheroes, or during incredibly important, victorious moments in a film. The effects here, deeply empowering. A low angle makes a character seem incredibly confident, heroic, or even downright intimidating if it happens to be a villain. They instantly appear just larger than life, dominating both the frame and the audience's perspective. I mean, there is a very good reason Darth Vader is almost exclusively shot from a low angle. All right, now let's take this to the sky. The bird's eye view takes the camera directly above the scene, pointing straight down. Think of like a drone shot over a winding mountain road or a sprawling village. This extreme high angle completely strips away individual character focus and instead reveals patterns, movement, and the broad relationships between people and their locations. It creates this vast sense of scale and emotional distance. On the total flip side, we've got the extreme low, the worm's eye view. The camera is placed basically at ground level, unless you happen to have a shovel, looking almost straight upward. This severely exaggerates height. It makes buildings, giant trees, or towering characters appear absolutely enormous and incredibly imposing to the viewer. Okay, we're shifting now to a purely psychological tool, the Dutch angle. Instead of tilting up or down, the camera is physically tilted sideways on its axis so the horizon line is no longer level. Tilting the world like this creates immediate visual tension. It essentially signals to the audience's subconscious that something is deeply wrong or fundamentally unstable. It is an absolute staple in thrillers, horror films, and psychological dramas to generate this creeping feeling of deep unease. And that brings us to our final tool, the point of view or POV shot. This shows exactly what a character is seeing, as if the camera lens is their very own eyes, like looking down at a door handle right as you open it. The POV shot is the ultimate empathy tool. It forces the audience directly into the character's physical and psychological experience, building a much stronger, much more visceral emotional connection. Let's move to section 3 and see how this builds. One scene, 4 stories. Let's look at the power of perspective in action. So here's our scenario. A student enters an empty classroom carrying an exam paper. That's it. That is the whole shebang. We're going to run through this exact same sequence 4 different times, changing absolutely nothing but the camera setup, just to prove the immense power of perspective. Notice how the narrative just radically shifts with every single choice here? With an eye-level angle, we just naturally observe the student walking in. It's totally neutral. But switch to a high angle, and suddenly, without the actor doing anything differently, that same student appears nervous, small, and overwhelmed by the upcoming test. Drop to a low angle, and instantly, they look determined and totally ready to ace it. Finally, tilt into a Dutch angle, and the room feels tense. We're bracing for something bad or unexpected to happen. One performance, 4 entirely different stories. Which leads us perfectly into part 4, mastering your camera through intentional execution. You know, the real difference between someone who just happens to own a nice camera and a true visual storyteller is intention. Beginners often make the mistake of shooting everything at a comfortable eye level just because it's easy, or they meaninglessly spam dizzying Dutch angles because they think it looks cool. That just leads to confusing storytelling. Pros, however, use purposeful execution. They carefully match the emotion of the scene to the angle, creating a strong, consistent visual language. The angle absolutely must support the story, never distract from it. To actually hit that professional level, there's this ultimate guiding question every creator has to ask themselves before they even think about touching the record button. And it's this: what should the audience feel? Once you know the answer to that, you simply choose the angle that inherently communicates that exact emotion. So the crucial point is really summed up in this core industry truth. Great cinematographers rarely choose camera angles because they look interesting. They choose them because they reveal character, emotion, or relationships. The brilliant part of visual storytelling is that your audience may never consciously notice that you placed the camera slightly lower or tilted it a few degrees, but they will always feel its effect. Which leaves us with a bit of a challenge for your next project. Next time you frame a shot, ask yourself, whose story are you really telling? And exactly how do you want the audience to feel? Apply this perspective shift and just watch your scenes come to life. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Next time, we're going to take this a step further and explore how camera movement itself creates incredible energy on screen. See you then.